I have always believed that life is a tapestry woven from moments of both profound joy and unimaginable sorrow. Our lives, Robert's and mine, spanning 68 and 69 years, had been a grand, intricate design. We were weavers of our own fate, or so I had always believed. We had endured our share of hardships, but always together, always with our hands clasped. I held this truth to be self-evident. It was a foundation upon which I had built my entire existence. I had no reason to believe anything different. This Thanksgiving, I was to have a vivid reminder of that truth. Robert had been out in the garden since early morning, pruning the rose bushes with a quiet, methodical precision that was so characteristic of him. I was inside, in the kitchen, preparing the stuffing for our family's annual Thanksgiving feast. The aroma of sage and onion and warm bread filled the air, a scent that had been the olfactory signature of our home for almost 4 decades. I had spent days on the preparations. The turkey was already in the oven, a magnificent golden brown bird ready to be carved. I was humming a tune from my youth, a light-hearted melody that matched the feeling in my chest. Thanksgiving was our favorite holiday, a time when our 2 children and our 5 grandchildren would gather in our home, filling it with laughter and life. Our house on Elm Street had always been the epicenter of our family's happiness, a sanctuary built not of wood and stone, but of love and shared memories. This year, it was to be more special than ever. We were to celebrate Robert's retirement. A new chapter was beginning for us, and I was so very excited about what the future held. The doorbell rang. It was not our children. I knew their timing. It must be the delivery of the new holiday tablecloth I had ordered. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked through the living room, my heart full of anticipation. The house was spotless, a testament to days of tireless cleaning and decorating. The windows sparkled. The brass on the fireplace shimmered. I smiled. Everything was perfect. That was the moment it happened. A sudden, sharp, and excruciating pain, a lightning bolt of fire that ignited in my chest and radiated down my left arm. It was unlike anything I had ever experienced. My breath hitched. The world seemed to tilt on its axis, a dizzying, terrifying sensation. The humming in my throat died. I gasped, a small, pathetic sound. I saw the living room floor rushing up to meet me, a blurred carpet of beige and brown. The last thing I heard was the sound of the doorbell chiming, a distant, mocking echo. My next memory was the sterile, antiseptic smell of a hospital room. A room so white and so bare that it felt as though all color and joy had been bleached from the world. A nurse, a kind woman with warm eyes, told me I had suffered a minor cardiac event. I had fallen, but miraculously, I had broken nothing. A few days of rest, a few tests, and I would be back home. I was, she assured me, very lucky. I was in an immense amount of pain, but a different kind of pain began to creep in, a pain that had nothing to do with my body. It started with a whisper, then a distant murmur, and then it became a thunderous, undeniable roar. My husband, Robert, was not there. He had been in the garden when it happened. The paramedics told me he had been the one to call for help after finding me collapsed on the porch, my arms outstretched toward the door. They said he had been with me in the ambulance, a silent, stoic presence. But now, in the endless silence of my hospital room, he was gone. I tried to rationalize it. He must be getting something to eat. He must have gone home to check on the house. He was probably making a phone call to the children. Hours passed. Then an entire day. Then another. He would visit, yes, for a few short minutes in the morning and a few more in the evening. He would stand at the foot of my bed, his face a blank mask I could not read, and he would ask me how I was. He would tell me not to worry. He would tell me that everything was fine. But everything was not fine. I could feel it in the deep, marrow-aching silence he carried with him, a silence that felt heavier and more tangible than anything I had ever known. My daughter, Sarah, a vibrant and busy woman with a family of her own, came to visit. She was exhausted, a living portrait of a woman trying to balance a career and a demanding family. Her visits were a whirlwind of hurried conversations about work, the children's school, and the holiday plans that had been so abruptly halted. "Do not worry about a thing, Mother," she said. fussing with the pillows on my bed. The Thanksgiving dinner can wait. You just focus on getting better. Father is doing everything he can to take care of things at home. Her words were meant to be reassuring, but they felt hollow. They were said with the distracted air of a person who was trying to solve a problem they did not fully comprehend. She did not notice the way her father looked away when I asked about the house. She did not see the way his eyes would not meet mine. She did not see the vast, empty chasm that had opened between us. The days stretched into a week. My pain became a constant, dull throb. The medication helped, but it could not dull the pain in my heart. Robert's visits became shorter. He stopped calling me. When I would call him, his voice would be curt and impatient, as though I were an inconvenience, an irritating interruption to his life. "I am fine, Robert," I said one evening, my voice a small, wavering thing. "I am getting so much better. The doctors say I might be able to come home soon." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. The kind of silence that feels like an accusation. "That is good, Eleanor," he said finally, his voice devoid of any warmth or emotion. "I will let you know." Let me know? What was there to know? I was his wife. I was coming home. I was not a guest who required an invitation. A cold dread, a bone-chilling premonition, settled over me. It was a feeling I could not name, a fear that had no shape or form, but it was there, lurking in the shadows of my mind, a monstrous thing waiting to reveal itself. One afternoon, a different nurse came into my room, a young woman with a round, cheerful face. She was new to my care, and her energy was a stark contrast to the quiet despair that had taken root in my heart. "You have a visitor, Mrs. Davis," she said, her voice bright and lilting. "Robert?" I asked, my heart leaping with a foolish, desperate hope. "No, dear," she said, her smile faltering just a little. "It is a Mrs. Samantha Hayes. She said she is a friend of your husband's." My heart, which had just begun to beat with a renewed rhythm, stumbled and fell. Mrs. Samantha Hayes? I did not know a Samantha Hayes. The name felt like a foreign object, a sharp, metallic thing in my mouth. A wave of nausea washed over me. What did this mean? The questions, 1,000 of them, 1,000,000 of them, tumbled in my mind, a frantic cascade of fear and confusion. The nurse, sensing my sudden distress, hesitated. "Shall I tell her to come in?" I felt a sudden, profound surge of defiance. Of course I wanted her to come in. I wanted to see this person, this interloper, this stranger with a name that felt so horribly wrong. I wanted to see the face that had so captivated my husband that he had abandoned me in my time of need. I nodded, a jerky motion that felt alien to my own body. "Yes," I said, my voice steadier than I expected it to be. "Please send her in." The nurse nodded and left the room. My mind, which had been a fog of confusion, suddenly cleared with a terrible, blinding clarity. It was not just a cardiac event that had brought me here. Something else had. Something far more dangerous. The silence of the solitary room was a lie. The sound I had been hearing, a sound I had refused to acknowledge, was the sound of my life unraveling, a sound I had only just now found the courage to hear. I felt a cold, hard resolve settle in my bones. I was not a weak, frail old woman. I was a survivor. I was a woman who had built a life, and I was not about to let a stranger come in and tear it all down. The door opened slowly. A woman, a young woman, perhaps in her late 30s, walked in. She was beautiful, with a mane of blonde hair that cascaded over her shoulders. She wore a tailored suit that cost more than I had spent on clothes in a decade. Her smile was a practiced, perfect thing, a thing that did not reach her eyes. Her eyes were hard and cold, and in them I saw no warmth, no sympathy, no understanding. Only a calculating, predatory greed that made my blood run cold. She was not a friend. She was a threat. And she had no idea who she was dealing with. She had no idea that I, Eleanor Davis, had always kept one secret, a secret so vast and so powerful that it could change everything. A secret that could leave her and my husband with nothing but the empty promises they had made to one another. And I knew, with an absolute certainty that filled me with a calm and terrifying resolve, that she was about to find out. The game had begun. The woman who stood before me was a vision of curated perfection. Every strand of her blonde hair was in its proper place, a golden waterfall that spoke of expensive salons and dedicated care. Her tailored suit was a symphony of fabric and cut, a quiet declaration of wealth and power. Her face, framed by flawless makeup, was a study in practiced calm. But her eyes were a different story. They were cold, and they held no kindness. They did not look at me, they assessed me, as one might assess a piece of furniture that no longer fit the decor. "Mrs. Davis," she began, her voice a polished, smooth thing, like river stone. It was a voice designed for public declarations, not private conversations. "I am so terribly sorry to see you here. I am told you had quite a scare." The words were meant to be a comfort, but they were delivered with an icy detachment that made them a mockery. There was no warmth in her tone, no genuine concern. It was a performance, and a rather poor one at that. I said nothing, my silence a deliberate act of defiance. I was not going to give her the satisfaction of a response. I was not going to be the frail, terrified old woman she expected me to be. She moved closer, her heels clicking softly on the pristine floor. She took a seat in the chair next to my bed, a chair that Robert had never once bothered to use. She crossed her legs, a casual, confident gesture that felt like a deliberate act of territorial marking. "Robert told me what happened," she continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "He was absolutely distraught. A man his age, with so much on his plate, well, a stressful event like this could be quite a lot to bear. I have been doing my best to take care of him, to make sure he does not feel so alone." The audacity of her words was breathtaking. Alone? He was not alone. He had me. He had our children. He had a lifetime of memories and a home filled with love. And she, this stranger, had the gall to sit in my hospital room and tell me she was taking care of him. I felt a cold fury, a raw and savage anger I had not felt since the day I learned my mother had passed. I wanted to scream, to rail against the injustice, to tear down her perfectly composed facade. But I did not. I kept my face a blank mask, a reflection of the one my husband had been wearing for the past week. "Who are you to him?" I asked, my voice a low, steady sound. I surprised myself. I had expected a tremor, a wobble. But there was none. She smiled then, a small, triumphant curve of her lips. "I am his partner, Eleanor. I am the woman who has been with him these past 3 years. I am the woman he truly loves." The words landed like a physical blow. 3 years. 3 years he had been living a lie, a life I had known nothing about. 3 years he had been coming home to me, a ghost of the man I had married, and all the while he was a different man entirely with her. I felt the world tilt again, not with the dizzying pain of a heart attack, but with the nauseating lurch of betrayal. Every memory, every shared moment, every quiet evening on the porch, every holiday, every anniversary, it was all a sham. A well-constructed, intricate lie. "He told me he had a secret," I said, my voice still unnervingly calm. "He said he had a secret about what he was doing with his money." I was naive enough to believe it was a surprise gift for me. Samantha's smile widened, a cruel and knowing thing. "He was so worried you would find out. He told me he was trying to figure out how to tell you." I told him he should not worry. That you were old, that you were tired, that you would understand. We both knew you would not stand in our way. The word old stung more than the word partner. It was a dismissal, a callous reduction of my entire existence. It was not just a comment on my age, it was a comment on my value, on my worth as a human being. They had not seen me as a person, they had seen me as an obstacle. A frail, insignificant obstacle that would crumble at the first sign of pressure. "So this is why he has been so distant," I said, a bitter taste on my tongue. "This is why he could not look me in the eye. He was not worried about me. He was worried about you." "We are building a life together, Eleanor," she said, her voice now filled with a triumphant note. "A life without stress. He is tired of the old house. He is tired of the old ways. He is ready for a change. And I am ready to give it to him." The words were an open declaration of war. She was not just a mistress, she was a conqueror, a woman who saw my life, my home, my husband, as a prize to be won. A prize she believed she had already claimed. Suddenly, the door opened. It was Robert. He looked at the two of us, his face a jumble of emotions I could not decipher, a flash of guilt, a flicker of panic, a shameful resignation. He did not look at me. He looked at Samantha. And in that moment, I knew with a chilling certainty that his loyalty, his love, his very soul belonged to her. "Samantha, what are you doing here?" he asked, his voice a low, nervous rumble. "I came to see Eleanor," she said, her voice sweet and composed. To see how she was doing. "I was just telling her about our plans." Robert's eyes widened. He shook his head, a silent, desperate plea. "Samantha, now is not the time." "On the contrary, darling," she said, a new, possessive nickname that felt like a violation. "This is exactly the time. Eleanor needs to know. We need to be a family. We need to move on." "Move on?" I asked, my voice dangerously soft. "What do you mean, move on?" Robert tried to interrupt, but Samantha held up a hand. She was in control now. She was enjoying this. She was savoring my humiliation. "We have decided to sell the house," she said, her smile brittle and cold. "We have an offer. A very generous offer. It will be more than enough for you to find a nice little apartment somewhere. Maybe a nice little senior community. Robert and I will be using the rest to purchase a new home for us. A fresh start. A new life. We thought you would be happy for us." I had thought I had been prepared for a great deal, but I was not prepared for this. The house. Our house. The house on Elm Street, the sanctuary of my life, the physical embodiment of all our memories. The house where we had raised our children, where our grandchildren had taken their first steps, where we had hosted decades of Thanksgiving dinners. They wanted to take that from me. They wanted to sell it out from under me. They wanted to erase my history, to leave me with nothing. A sharp, searing pain tore through my chest, a pain that was 1,000 times worse than the heart attack. This was not just a betrayal, it was an attempted annihilation. "You cannot," I said, the words a raw, guttural sound that surprised all of us. "We can, Eleanor," Robert said, his voice now a hollow, tired thing. "The house is in both of our names. We are going to sell it. It is for the best. You need to be in a place where you can be taken care of. A place where you will be safe." The gaslighting was masterful. He was not taking the house from me, he was saving me. He was not abandoning me, he was protecting me. He was not a villain, he was a hero. And I, a woman who had spent a lifetime building a home, was now a helpless, pathetic creature in need of a protector. A protector who wanted to steal my home and give it to his mistress. I looked at him, at the man I had loved for almost 50 years, and I saw nothing. The man I knew was gone, replaced by a coward who was hiding behind a younger woman's petticoat. A man who was willing to give up everything for a fleeting romance, for a promise of a new life with a stranger. "You do not know me," I said, my voice low and fierce. "You do not know what I am capable of. You do not know what I have been hiding." Samantha scoffed. What could an old woman possibly be hiding? I looked her in the eyes, a long, steady gaze that did not waver. I saw a fleeting spark of uncertainty, a flash of fear that was quickly suppressed. She had underestimated me. She had underestimated the woman who had built this life, who had made the money, who had made all the hard choices. She thought she was a conqueror. She did not know that she was a mouse, a tiny, insignificant thing that was about to find herself trapped in a maze of her own making. "A secret," I said, my voice a whisper. "A secret that will leave both of you with nothing but the empty promises you have made to one another." "I told you, Robert, that I had a secret." You laughed. You should not have laughed. Because you are about to find out just what that secret is. And when you do, you will wish you had never tried to break me. You will wish you had never let her into your life. You will wish you had never, ever left my side. I looked from him to her, and then back to him. The game had not just begun. It had been won. And they had no idea. Not a single idea. I was not a victim. I was a warrior. A warrior who was about to show them what it meant to truly lose everything. After Robert and his paramour left, the silence in my room was more deafening than ever. It was not a peaceful silence. It was a furious one, the kind of stillness that comes before a storm. The words they had spoken to me, the casual cruelty of their plan, the audacity of their attempt to take my home, it all replayed in my mind like a horrible, grinding film. The pain in my chest, the one that the doctors said was from my heart, was nothing compared to the pain in my soul. I felt as though I was a porcelain doll, and they had just shattered me into a million pieces. I had been a fool. A loving, trusting, and, ultimately, a very foolish wife. I had spent almost 50 years building a life with a man who had been secretly building a life without me for 3 of them. A life he now wanted to build on the ruins of mine. The house on Elm Street was not just a house, it was the testament to our life together. It was where we had brought our children home from the hospital, where we had watched them grow, where we had held their hands as they walked out the door to start their own lives. It was filled with our memories, our joys, our sorrows. And they wanted to sell it. They wanted to turn it into a sterile transaction, a simple exchange of money for a lifetime of memories. A fierce, burning rage began to rise within me, a fire that had been smoldering beneath the ashes of my grief and my pain. It was a new feeling for me. I had always been the peacemaker, the one who tried to see the good in people, the one who tried to avoid conflict. But there was no avoiding this. This was not a conflict, this was a war. A war for my dignity, my home, my life. I reached for the small, metal button on the side of my bed. I needed to see my doctor. I needed to see a lawyer. I needed to get out of this place. I needed to get home. The nurse, the kind, round-faced one from before, came in, her face a mask of concern. "Mrs. Davis," she said, her voice soft. "Are you all right? You look as though you have seen a ghost." "I have seen a ghost," I said, the words a bitter echo. "The ghost of my life. I need to see the doctor. I need to be discharged. I need to go home." She looked at me, a silent, assessing look. I could see the questions in her eyes. Was I in my right mind? Was I stable? I knew I was. I had never been more lucid, never more certain of my own mind. The shock had cleared all the fog, leaving behind a hard, crystalline resolve. The doctor, a young man with a kind face and tired eyes, came in. He had been so reassuring, so calm, so professional before. But now he looked at me with a different expression. He saw the fire in my eyes, the steel in my spine. "Mrs. Davis," he said, his voice quiet. "I understand you wish to be discharged." "Yes," I said, my voice firm. "I need to get home. I have things to do." He looked at my chart, his brow furrowed in thought. "You have had a very serious event, Mrs. Davis. I think it would be wise to stay another day, just for observation. We need to make sure your heart is stable." "My heart is not the problem," I said, my voice low. "The problem is my husband. He is trying to sell our house. He is trying to take my life from me. I need to get home. I need to stop him." The doctor looked at me, his eyes filled with a sad understanding. He had seen this before. He had seen the way that people's lives could fall apart in an instant, the way that a physical ailment could be a symptom of a much deeper, a much more insidious disease. He knew that some wounds could not be healed by medication, but by resolve. "All right, Mrs. Davis," he said, his voice full of a different respect. "I will sign your discharge papers. But I want you to promise me something. I want you to take it easy. I want you to take care of yourself. Do not let this consume you." I smiled, a thin, humorless thing. "This is not going to consume me, doctor. This is going to empower me. This is going to make me stronger. This is going to remind me that I am still here. I am still a force to be reckoned with." I was discharged the next morning. The world outside the hospital was a whirlwind of color and sound, a stark contrast to the sterile quiet of my room. The sun was shining. The air was crisp and cool. It was a perfect autumn day. A day that would have been perfect for our Thanksgiving celebration. A day that was now a monument to the end of my life as I had known it. I took a cab home. The familiar streets, the familiar houses, the familiar trees, they all looked different. They looked like a stranger's landscape. My heart pounded in my chest as the cab pulled up to the curb. My house looked so beautiful, so calm, so serene. It was a lie. I knew it was a lie. The stillness of the house was a front, a facade for the turmoil that lay within. I paid the driver and walked up the front steps. I took a deep breath and pushed the key into the lock. The click of the lock was a small, insignificant sound. But to me, it was a sound of victory. I was home. I was in my home. And I was not leaving. Not ever. I walked inside. The house was spotless, a testament to Robert's hurried attempts at perfection. The Thanksgiving decorations were gone. The tablecloth, the one I had ordered, was gone. The stuffing I had made, the turkey I had roasted, the pies I had baked, all gone. My life had been wiped clean, as if it had never existed. I walked through the house, a ghost in my own home. My wedding photos were gone from the mantel. The family portraits from the hallway were gone. The picture of Robert and me on our honeymoon in Italy, the one I had always cherished, it was gone. He was trying to erase me. He was trying to erase all the evidence of my existence. He was trying to make it look as though I had never been here. A new scent, a cloying, sweet scent of lilies and another woman's perfume, hung in the air. I walked into the bedroom. Our bedroom. And I saw it. A woman's slip, a lacy, delicate thing, was draped over the back of a chair. A pair of her shoes, a stylish, modern thing, sat by the side of the bed. A hairbrush, a silver, gleaming thing, lay on the dresser. He had not just brought her into my life. He had brought her into my home. He had brought her into my bed. He had brought her into the sanctuary of my existence. The rage in my heart, the fire that had been smoldering, now became an inferno. My hands were shaking. I wanted to break everything. I wanted to scream. But I did not. I was calm. I was a warrior. And a warrior does not scream. A warrior does not break things. A warrior fights. I walked into the study, a small, quiet room that had always been my sanctuary. The room was just as I had left it. The mahogany desk was pristine. My books were lined up in their proper place. And on the desk, there it was. The leather-bound ledger. The one I had been hiding for 20 years. The one that contained my secret. I sat down in the chair, a deep, worn leather thing that fit me like a second skin. I opened the ledger. The pages, yellowed with age, were filled with my meticulous, careful script. I had started this ledger 2 decades ago, a quiet act of defiance against a world that had always told me that a woman's place was in the home, that her worth was measured by the man she married, that her purpose was to serve. I had spent a lifetime proving them wrong. I had done it quietly, secretly, without fanfare. And now, the time for quiet was over. I flipped through the pages. I had invested every spare dollar I had. I had invested in stocks, in bonds, in real estate, in a quiet, methodical way that no one, not even Robert, had known about. I had made a small fortune. A fortune that was now worth millions. A fortune that was mine. All mine. I was not a woman without means. I was not a woman who could be pushed around. I was a woman with a secret. A secret that would leave them both with nothing but the clothes on their backs. I stood up from the desk. My legs, which had been so shaky in the hospital, felt strong. My back, which had been so weak, felt straight. I was not a victim. I was a survivor. I was a warrior. A warrior who was about to show them what it meant to truly lose everything. I picked up the phone, a quiet, humming thing. I dialed the number. I had not called a lawyer in years. But I knew exactly who to call. A woman, a brilliant, tenacious woman who had always told me that I was stronger than I knew. A woman who would not be afraid to fight for me. A woman who would not be afraid to fight for the truth. "Hello," she said, her voice bright and cheerful. "This is Mary and Jones. How can I help you?" "Mary and," I said, my voice low and steady. "This is Eleanor. I need you to help me." "Eleanor," she said, her voice filled with surprise. "It has been so long. What can I do for you?" "I need you to help me take back my life," I said, my voice a fierce whisper. "I need you to help me get back my home. And I need you to help me show my husband and his mistress what it means to truly lose everything. I want them to find out what it means to be truly alone. I want them to feel the cold, bitter nothingness of an empty life. I want them to understand what they have done. And I am going to make sure that they do. I have a secret. A secret that will change everything." The call to Mary and was the first stone cast in the river of my revenge. The moment I heard her bright, professional voice on the other end of the line, I felt a sense of empowerment I had not known in years. I told her everything. I told her about the heart attack, about the hospital room, about Robert's betrayal, and about Samantha. I told her about their callous plan to sell our house, and I told her about the ledger. My voice, which had been so small and pathetic in the hospital, now felt strong, filled with a righteous anger that lent it a chilling clarity. Mary Ann listened, her silence a professional, attentive thing. She did not interrupt. She did not express surprise. She simply let me speak, let me pour out the years of my quiet life and the minutes of my recent horror. When I was finished, there was a long pause. "Eleanor," she said finally, her voice low and steady. "I need you to tell me everything about this ledger. The accounts, the investments, the properties. Everything." I did. I told her about the stocks I had bought, the small apartment building I had purchased with a private loan, the art I had quietly invested in, the antique furniture I had restored and sold for a profit. I had done it all without a word to Robert, a quiet, almost secret life that had run parallel to our marriage. A life that had now, ironically, become my life raft. "Eleanor," she said when I was finished, "you are not just a millionaire. You are a financial genius. You have been managing your own portfolio for decades, and you have done it with a precision and a wisdom that most professional traders could only dream of. I am in awe of you." Her words were a balm to my soul, a validation that I had not known I so desperately needed. For years, I had told myself that my investments were just a hobby, a quiet little secret that was nothing more than a way to pass the time. But now I knew the truth. It was more than a hobby. It was a testament to my own intelligence, my own strength, my own worth. It was my voice, a voice that had been silenced for so long. The next few days were a whirlwind of quiet, methodical action. Mary Ann came to the house. She was a whirlwind of energy and competence, a force of nature in a tailored suit. We sat in the study, and I showed her the ledger. Her eyes widened as she flipped through the pages. She was not just a lawyer, she was a friend. A friend who had always known there was more to me than met the eye. "He does not even know, does he?" she asked, a small smile playing on her lips. "He has no idea what you have been doing all this time." "He does not have a clue," I said, a grim satisfaction in my voice. "He thinks I am just a quiet little housewife. He thinks I am a burden." "Well, Eleanor," she said, closing the ledger with a soft thud, "you are about to prove him very, very wrong." The next day, Mary Ann set things in motion. We put a temporary restraining order on the house, preventing Robert from selling it without my explicit consent. We had the locks changed. We had the deeds to all my properties notarized and filed. We went in my bank and had all the accounts frozen. I was a quiet woman no longer. I was a woman with a plan. A woman with a purpose. A woman with a powerful lawyer on her side. My first act of quiet, defiant rebellion was to redecorate the house. I had the furniture that Samantha had been using hauled away. The clothes, the shoes, the hairbrush, everything. I had the rooms professionally cleaned, and I bought new furniture, new art, new everything. The house was no longer a monument to my humiliation. It was a monument to my defiance. A quiet, beautiful declaration of my independence. The most satisfying moment came a week later when Robert came to the house, our realtor in tow. He had a look of smug satisfaction on his face, the face of a man who believed he had won. He tried to unlock the door, but the key did not work. He tried again. And again. His face, which had been so smug, now began to twist with a look of confusion. I opened the door. I was standing in the foyer, my arms crossed, a small, knowing smile on my face. The house was spotless. The air smelled of fresh paint and new wood. The old scent of lilies was gone, replaced by the scent of victory. "What is going on, Eleanor?" he asked, his voice a bewildered whisper. "Why does my key not work?" "Because you are no longer welcome here, Robert," I said, my voice as calm as a summer morning. "This is my house, not yours." The realtor, a young woman with a pleasant, professional smile, looked from me to him, a flicker of alarm in her eyes. "Mrs. Davis," she said, her voice a little shaky. "What does she mean?" Robert looked at her, his face a jumble of emotions: shock, rage, a terrifying, bone-chilling fear. "She is confused," he said, his voice a panicked plea. "She has been in the hospital. She does not know what she is saying." I smiled, a wide, beatific smile. "Oh, I know exactly what I am saying, Robert. I am saying that this is my house. The mortgage is in my name. The deed is in my name. Everything you see, everything you touch, everything you have ever thought belonged to you, belongs to me." The look on his face was a masterpiece of human emotion. He was confused, he was angry, he was terrified. He was a man who had lost everything in a single moment, a man who had been a king and was now a pauper. And he had no idea why. He had no idea what was happening. "The house is in both our names, Eleanor," he said, his voice a low, threatening rumble. "You cannot just take it from me." "I have not just taken it from you," I said, my voice low and steady. "I have never given it to you. The house was purchased with my money, Robert. Money I have been saving for decades. Money you knew nothing about." He looked at me, his face a mask of disbelief. You had a secret account?" "More than one," I said, the words a quiet, powerful declaration. "I own a number of properties. I have a rather large investment portfolio. I am, in fact, a very wealthy woman. And you, my dear husband, are not." The look on the realtor's face was one of dawning comprehension. She saw the rage in Robert's eyes, the fire in mine. She saw the truth of the situation. And she did something that surprised me. She backed away from him, a silent, almost imperceptible motion. She was not a part of this. And she wanted nothing to do with him. "You are going to regret this, Eleanor," Robert said, his voice a raw, choked thing. "Oh, I doubt it," I said, my smile a cold, unforgiving thing. "I have already regretted it. I regretted it the moment I learned you had brought another woman into my life. I regretted it the moment I learned you had tried to sell my home. Now, you are going to regret it. You are going to feel what it is like to lose everything. You are going to feel what it is like to be truly alone. And I will be here, watching you fall. I will be here to collect my debt. Every last cent." The look on Robert's face was a masterpiece of bewildered shock. He stared at me, then at the house, then back at me, as if trying to reconcile the woman he saw with the woman he thought he knew. He was a man who had built his life on the assumption of my quiet obedience, on the belief that I was a simple, harmless fixture of his existence. And in a single moment, that entire foundation had crumbled beneath him. The realtor, sensing the seismic shift in the atmosphere, mumbled a quick, nervous apology and fled, leaving us alone in the tense silence of my front porch. Robert stumbled forward, as if to grab me, but I stepped back, my eyes never leaving his. He looked older, smaller. The confident swagger of the man who had abandoned me in the hospital was gone, replaced by a desperate, pleading vulnerability. He looked at me as if I were a stranger, and in that moment, I realized that I was. I was a stranger to him, and he was a stranger to me. The man I had loved for almost 50 years was an illusion, a ghost that had haunted my life for decades. "Eleanor," he said, his voice a low, raw thing. What are you doing? What are you talking about?" "I am talking about the truth, Robert," I said, my voice as cold and as sharp as a shard of ice. "I am talking about the fact that this house, our life, our entire existence, it was all built on a lie. A lie that you, and now Samantha, so desperately wanted to perpetuate." He swallowed hard, his eyes darting around, looking for an escape, an excuse. "The house is in both of our names, Eleanor. You cannot just take it from me. It is not fair." "Fair?" I laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. "Fair? Was it fair when you left me in the hospital? Was it fair when you planned to sell my home out from under me? Was it fair when you brought that woman into my bed, into my life, into my very soul? Do not talk to me about fair. Fair left the building the moment you did." He flinched at my words, and I saw a flash of raw, naked fear in his eyes. He had been so confident, so arrogant, so sure of his victory. He had not anticipated a battle. He had not anticipated a war. He had not anticipated a single act of defiance from me. And now he was faced with a force he could not comprehend. "Eleanor, please," he said, his voice now a pathetic whisper. Let us talk. We can work this out. We can just go back to the way things were. There is no going back, Robert, I said, a wave of profound, bone-deep sadness washing over me. The way things were was a lie. A beautiful, carefully constructed lie. And I am done with lies. You have made your bed. Now you have to lie in it. He looked at me, a silent, desperate plea in his eyes. I saw the ghost of the man I had loved, the man who had held my hand through every trial, every tribulation. And for a fleeting moment, a single, agonizing moment, my heart ached for him. But then, the memory of Samantha's cruel smile, the memory of his cold, distant face in the hospital, and the memory of their callous plan to sell my home returned, and the ache in my heart turned into a cold, hard stone of resolve. Go, Robert, I said, my voice a final, unshakable thing. Go. And do not ever come back. He looked at me for a long, quiet moment, and then a single tear, a solitary, pathetic tear, traced a path down his cheek. He turned and walked away, a defeated, broken man. He did not look back. He just kept walking, a solitary figure disappearing down the street. And I, Eleanor Davis, a woman who had just won a war she had not known she was fighting, just stood there, watching him go. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace. The silence was no longer a furious thing, it was a peaceful, quiet, almost a musical thing. The house was no longer a monument to my humiliation, it was a testament to my freedom. The next day, my children and grandchildren came to visit. They had heard whispers, rumors, and they had come to see for themselves. They were concerned, confused, and worried. They did not know about Samantha. They did not know about the plan to sell the house. They did not know about the ledger. And I, in my quiet, methodical way, told them. I told them everything. I told them about the heart attack, about the hospital, about Robert's abandonment. I told them about Samantha, about their plan to sell the house, and about the ledger. My children listened, their faces a jumble of emotions, shock, anger, a quiet, a profound sadness. Mother, my daughter Sarah said, her voice a small, wavering thing. Why did you never tell us? Why did you never tell us about the money? Because it was my secret, Sarah, I said, my voice a whisper. It was the one thing in my life that was truly and completely mine. It was the one thing that no one could take from me. It was my secret, and it gave me a sense of security. A security I had never known before. My children looked at me, and I saw a new look in their eyes. It was not just respect, it was awe. They saw me not just as their mother, but as a woman. A woman who had a secret life. A woman who was a fighter. A woman who had faced her demons and had won. A month later, I was on a private jet, flying to Italy. I was not alone. I was with my children and my grandchildren. We were not going to a hotel. We were going to a villa I had purchased years ago, a beautiful, sprawling thing on a sun-drenched hill, overlooking the sparkling waters of the Mediterranean Sea. A villa that no one, not even Robert, had known about. A villa that was a testament to my quiet, defiant spirit. A villa that was a monument to my freedom. I stood on the balcony, looking out at the sun-drenched landscape, the scent of salt and sea, and the promise of a new life filling the air. My children were laughing on the terrace below, their voices a symphony of joy. My grandchildren were running through the manicured gardens, their small bodies a whirlwind of energy and life. I felt a sense of peace that I had not felt in years. I had not just survived, I had thrived. As for Robert, I never saw him again. He was gone. He was a ghost, a memory, a man who had lost everything because he had underestimated the woman he thought he knew. He had believed he was a king, but he was a pauper. And I, Eleanor Davis, a woman who had been a pauper in her own life, was now a queen who had a kingdom of her own. A kingdom of peace, of joy, and of quiet, defiant strength. My life was not over. It had just begun.